All right, we got the Bosu out, and we're back with Chris Bartle from Bartle Strength and Conditioning. Ooh, look at those muscles.
I benched.
Well, are we going to bench press with this Bosu? I don't think so, right? What are we going to do with this Bosu?
We're going to talk about, and we're going to go over one of the most popular ab exercises there is out there. We're going to go over a Bosu ball crunch. Before we get into the Bosu ball crunch, I want to throw the disclaimer out here real quick. I'm not much of a fan of crunches. There's a couple reasons why I try not to program a lot of crunches into my clients' programs. For one, the role of the abs is not to flex at all. The role of the abs is to stabilize and support the spine. And that's really the best way to train your core, is in stabilizing motions like planks and so forth like that. The other reason is for a posture thing. Most of the population of the United States is like this anyways. So if you start teaching people with poor posture how to do a crunch, all you're doing is compounding an already bad posture. So with that out of the way, I just had to get that off my chest. This is an exercise that you see done wrong 9 times out of 10 in a gym.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we'll show you guys how to do it on a Bosu ball. In a later episode, we'll show you guys how to do it on a stability ball, and then we'll start showing different crunch variations as we can start to progress and we can get Jesse's core a little bit stronger. Okay? So let's start with the very basic. What I'm going to have Jesse do is sit down on the ground with his butt on the ground and his lower back just resting against the Bosu ball. Good. Go ahead and actually scoot your butt all the way down to the ground. Let's go to the very, very basic model. Okay? So, for someone who doesn't have the core strength yet, we always want to have the butt on the ground so their back is really supported. Now, the one important thing, when it comes to the legs, you can have them bent or extended. It's really not going to have that much of an effect on the actual crunch itself, because in this position here, we're going to be focusing mainly on the upper part of the abs anyways. So what I want you to do is, rule number 1, you never want to interlock your hands behind your head, because then all of a sudden you're going to get into the situation where you're going to want to yank your head forward, and then all of a sudden you're straining your neck, and you're going to have grumpy guy syndrome who never wants to do sit-ups or crunches because it strains his neck. Okay? So what I always like to tell people to do is, I want them to do earmuffs. Okay? I want their hands covering their ears. That way you're not going to have the ability to pull your head forward. Now, all you're going to do in this basic movement, Jesse, is go ahead and earmuff yourself out. And what I want you to do is roll let your chest and your shoulders fall back as much as you can. Open up the rib cage, and then I want you to squeeze with your abs and bring your shoulders all the way up, and try and get your elbows almost towards your knees. Right to there. Go ahead and stop. And go ahead and come back down again. Let's do about 4 or 5 more of those. Now, I told Jesse I wanted him to think about getting his elbows to his knees. Why? Because I wanted him to flex his trunk. Okay? If I were to tell him to get his elbows to the ceiling, go ahead and get your elbows to the ceiling. Okay? He's not going to flex the trunk. Okay? And that's going to put more strain on his back, which we don't really want in a flexion movement. So try and get the elbows targeting the knees, and that way we can really focus mainly on his washboard abs instead of my keg. Okay? So this is level 1. I would say this is pretty much the most basic. You're targeting the upper abs as much as we can. And by rolling back and really letting the shoulder blades try and come down as much as you can, you want to open up that rib cage and really spread the muscles out so you can really focus on as many muscles as you can. Okay? Now, if we were to progress Jesse from here, what we can do is get him to the position that he originally wanted to do when he first came down. So let's scoot you back on the Bosu just a little bit more. Okay? Now go ahead and earmuff yourself again, and now let your shoulder blades try and come all the way to the ground. By moving backwards on the Bosu, now all of a sudden he's able to open up his rib cage and spread his abs out even more. So again, try and target your elbows towards your knees. Bam. Okay? Come all the way back. Really open up the rib cage and then squeeze. One thing that people do wrong with this exercise is they'll move the motion with their chest. You want to squeeze your abs. Try and get a mind-muscle connection. You notice when I do this, when Jesse comes all the way back, I'm actually touching his abs. Because when you touch a muscle, you're sending a signal to his brain that that's what I want to focus on right there. So when he's really spread out and I tell him to really focus on squeezing his abs with my fingers right there, it's sending a neurological signal to his brain that's what I want. So go ahead and put one hand on your abs, Jesse. You'll see a lot of people do this. If you don't have a partner to help you with your hand on your abs, you can go ahead and do it yourself. It'll help create that mind-muscle connection for without anybody's help. Okay? And so that's essentially a Bosu ball crunch. You're limited on the range of motion, but it is a very good beginner way to get someone's ab strength up to the point to where you can progress them up to more of a stability ball, which we'll cover in a later episode.
My tummy feels tight. I feel like I'm ready to go to the beach.
There you go.
Thanks, Chris. Brother.